Hello, and welcome to the Kretus training webinar. My name is Laura, and today we will be going over our pre-job checklist, installation checklist, daily report, and extended warranty. You can find these documents on our website on the home page by clicking on Project Planning and then Checklists, Reports, and Warranties. This will pull up all 4 checklists, warranties in the application where you can click and download each document. Let's start with the pre-job checklist. This is a checklist that should be filled out prior to bidding a job. Think of it almost as a script for the contractor or installer or even the end user, depending upon who you're working with. It is a good idea to keep multiple copies with you so that if you get a phone call and you have to go to a job site as soon as possible, you already have it in your truck and you're ready to go. It's also helpful if you get a phone call at the front counter or someone who comes in. It's nice to have those copies already printed and ready to go. It really just helps you ask the right questions that will guide you to choosing the correct system for the job. Today, we are going to fill out a mock pre-job checklist to help you understand what these questions are and why it is important that this is filled out in its entirety. We'll start with section A. This is the contact information, and for today, we are going to have Jeremy as our contractor, Michael as our homeowner and end user, and we are going to be installing a garage floor for him. And Tom is our John Donne sales rep. Moving on to section B and C. These will most likely be answered by the homeowner. It lets us know what they're expecting, when they are expecting the job to start, and where they want their floor installed. Michael is expecting a start date around December 1st, and it is for his garage, which is 400 square feet. He also has 80 linear feet of stem wall that is 6 inches high. And a stem wall is essentially just poured concrete as the cove. So it is already there, and it's just something that we will be coating. Moving on to section C, this is the client aesthetics. Michael has chosen a color chip floor, and based off of the Kretus color chart, he chose the color bow tie. He's not adding any additional textures. Next is section D and E, client operations and exposure. These are important sections to fill out because it will help us understand which system and thickness is needed for the job. We know that the customer owns the area and that it is indoors, but we also know that it's a garage and it will be exposed to harsh lighting. Since it is a garage, we know that oil and gas will be dripping onto the coating. We also know that it would need to be hot tire resistant, but it's also important to ask what kind of chemicals will be used in the area, and most likely for this, it'll just be bleach or an all-purpose cleaner. Moving on to section E, number 8, we do know that it's a single-family home and it is not going to be exposed to that much traffic, so we can move on to section F. Section F and G talk about the history of the building and the concrete irregularities. We really just need to know the condition that the concrete is in. A lot of the times a homeowner might not have this information unless it is a new home build, and this is really more for an industrial job. But if you do have a residential job and they aren't really sure that the floor is in good condition or they don't know the age of the concrete, just ask for pictures. We really just need to know what's the condition of the concrete so that we know what prep work may need to be done and what system would work best on that concrete. Michael does know the age of his concrete. It is a newer home. It's only 3 years old, and it has minor cracks and joints. We will honor these cracks and joints in a job like this, whereas in an industrial job, you might need to fill the cracks, but for a typical garage, you will just honor them. You do also have to make sure to ask how much linear feet of cracks and joints there are so that you can make sure you have the correct product and the right amount of product. Moving on to section H and I. H discusses the wall cove. And we already know that there is a stem wall in place and that it is 6 inches in height and 80 linear feet from section B earlier in the checklist. And that Michael does want it coated just like the floor. Section I moves into the prep checklist. These questions make sure we are aware of what the contractor may have to bring with him or her to the job. Do we need an HVAC or an air scrubber? What is the estimated time of the job, and is overnight travel required, etc. We know that it is just a residential garage install. The lighting will be fine. We don't need HVAC. We don't need additional generators, and it will be a relatively easy installation. We also know that the material will be either held at the installer's warehouse or at John Don, the retail store. We won't have a ton of product like a much larger industrial job, and that it'll be a lot easier to move the material. The contractor will most likely just be delivering it in his truck, and trash will be handled with typical trash bags. The last section is section J. This is the concrete testing. You do need to make sure that concrete testing is discussed with the customer. For today, we spoke with Michael and he declined any additional further testing, but we do have a moisture vapor emissions test or a calcium chloride test with results of 9 pounds. After we have the full pre-job checklist filled out and all of the concrete testing has been completed, what should the suggested system be? Well, we can take a look at our color chip installation guide, which can be found on our website. We will be going over the installation guides in further detail in a different webinar, but for today's purposes, we're just going to look at page 5 and our ASTM test. We can see right here that the moisture vapor emissions rate for the 5 color chip systems that we have. We know that it is 9 pounds for Michael's garage, so we can see that the garage system and the polyaspartic system will not work. So the 3 systems left are TS, RC, and RCUV, and SL. We know that our contractor, Jeremy, is not that familiar with urethane polymer concrete, so the system of choice is going to be color chip TS. Once the contractor has installed the floor, this is what it should look like. This is the color bow tie. It's what Michael was looking for. We honored the joints, and it looks great. Moving on to the next checklist is our daily report and installation checklist. This is essentially a checklist that the contractor should be filling out on the job during the installation. It ensures that the conditions are okay to install. It asks about the temperature and the dew point and the lighting, and it just kind of gives you an idea of what to look for to make sure that job can be installed on that day. It also keeps the installer on track. He or she can write notes, can make sure they're checking off what has been done and when. If they come across any issues, they can make a note that they spoke to the customer, and if the customer says, that's okay, keep going with the installation. This is the checklist or the documentation where you can note all of that. The next checklist is the installation checklist, and this is actually completed after the installation. This ensures that you have everything documented from that install. You have a copy of all the safety and technical documentation. You reviewed the maintenance and cleaning guide with the client. You have all of the receipts and the invoices, and so on and so forth. This installation checklist is also very important because it has to be filled out if you want an extended warranty for the job, which leads us to the extended warranty application. Kretus does offer a 1-year warranty without application, but if you're looking for a longer and extended warranty, this application must be filled out. It cannot be filled out any later than 6 weeks. So it has to be filled out within 6 weeks of the completed job. We do recommend that you fill all of these documents out as soon as possible and submit them as soon as possible so that we don't run into any issues. The pre-job checklist and the installation checklist must be filled out in order to receive the extended warranty. So just to go over everything that we covered today, we really do recommend that you fill these checklists out as soon as the job is completed. But for the installation checklist and the extended warranty, you do have up to 6 weeks to submit them. These checklists really just keep John Donne, Kretus, the contractor, and the end user all on the same page. It gives proper documentation, it makes sure you're asking the right questions, and it just helps you stay on track. It also helps Kretus help you guys figure out what system is used. If you're still unsure after you've filled out the pre-job checklist, if you're relatively new to the concrete world, as long as that pre-job checklist is filled out, you can submit it to us and we can review it and help you come up with the right system for the job. Just remember that we are a team and we want to help you guys succeed in selling our product.